There's a moment just before a wave crashes when the ocean goes quiet. The wind eases, the surface stills, and everything slows down as if time itself is pausing. And then, without warning, it hits. That silence isn't peace, it's pressure. It's tension. It's the calm that always comes before the shift. And right now, we're living in that silence. People feel it. They may not know what to call it, but it's there. A strange stillness. Not in the world's activity. We've never been busier. Not in the headlines. They've never been louder. But beneath all that noise, beneath the constant movement and distraction, there's a quiet that has settled over everything. A waiting, a holding of breath, as though the world knows that something is coming, but can't quite say what. It's in the conversations that trail off into uncertainty. It's in the eyes of leaders who offer no real answer. It's in the digital feed that cycles endlessly but never really says anything. We are surrounded by noise, but it's hollow, empty. It's filling space to hide the fact that the real shift hasn't happened yet, but it's close. And when it comes, it won't make an announcement. It won't be loud. It'll arrive suddenly, and everything will change. This is what makes moments like these so deceptive, because on the surface, things can seem stable. Banks are open, schools are running, traffic moves. But underneath, the systems are straining, the foundations are cracking, the pressure is building. Anyone who's paying attention can sense it. This isn't normal. This isn't just another chapter in the same old book. This is the final pages being written before something new begins. And once that page turns, there's no going back. What makes this time so dangerous is that most people are lulled into comfort by the quiet. They mistake the delay for a denial. They assume that because nothing has exploded yet, nothing ever will. That because they're still getting paid, still checking in, still scrolling through their days, that the future will just be a slow continuation of the past. But history has never worked that way. Major shifts never begin with a blast. They begin with stillness, with a moment when people let down their guard because they think the worst is over, when in reality, the most defining moment is just ahead. There are signs all around us. The systems are speaking if we're willing to listen. Markets that once bounced back with ease now stumble with every rumor. Governments that once offered direction now traffic in confusion. Institutions that once held credibility now inspire distrust. And amid all of it, the individual is left to navigate a world that feels more uncertain than ever before. People are tired. They're drained, not just from work or stress, but from the weight of trying to pretend that things are okay, from the burden of carrying normalcy on their backs when nothing about this moment feels normal. The optimism feels forced. The smiles look rehearsed. And deep down, most know that the world they've been living in is changing into something they won't recognize in just a short time. There's no need for panic. Panic is emotional, reactionary. But there is a deep need for clarity, for discernment, for that quiet alertness that doesn't just watch what's happening, but understands what it means. Because this final alert, this last warning, isn't being shouted from the rooftops. It's coming through the cracks, through the tension, through the weight of silence that's hanging over everything. And only those who are still enough to hear it will know how close we really are. The question isn't, has it started? It's how deep into it are we already? Because the systems that matter most don't collapse overnight. They decay slowly, then fall suddenly. And when that final moment comes, there's no time to catch up. There's only the realization that the signs were always there and that the window to respond has already closed. This is the moment when people are most tempted to look away, to tell themselves a better story. To sink into distraction won't delay what's coming. It will only leave people unprepared when it arrives. There's a reason this final alert feels different. It's not hype. It's not speculation. It's recognition. Recognition that what we're watching unfold is not a cycle. It's a culmination. And while some are still debating, others are deciding. While many are still waiting for confirmation, a few are already preparing for reality. The time for analysis is closing. The time for response is here. Because when the silence breaks, and everything that was delayed will arrive at once. All the disruptions, all the systems, all the warnings, they'll converge in a way that will redefine what normal even means. The most difficult part of this moment is not the fear, it's the denial. People don't want to believe that the world can change so quickly, that entire systems can shift in days, that everything they've relied on, social structures, financial stability, public order, can be redefined in a blink. We've seen it happen before. History is filled with people who didn't believe it until they had no choice but to believe it. And by then it was too late. Right now, we're being given that final alert, not in the form of sirens, not through announcements, but through silence, through tension, through the unnerving stillness that settles in just before the storm. And that moment is not meant to scare us. It's meant to awaken us, to remind us that the hour is not indefinite, that time is not unlimited, that windows of preparation eventually become closed doors of consequence. You can already see how tightly the world is wound, how quickly things unravel with just one spark, one policy, one event, one unexpected ripple, and the entire structure shakes. That's not the sign of a strong system. That's the sign of one that's barely holding together. And when the pressure gets too much, when the illusion of control slips, those who waited will be left with regret, not options. There is still a choice. There is still a moment to act, but it's not endless. It's not something that will stretch indefinitely while we wrestle with doubt. Because once the silence ends, the decision will have already been made. Not in words, but in posture, in position, in readiness. And that's what this is about. Readiness, not survival kits or panic buttons, not fear-mongering or sensationalism, but a clear, focused readiness that sees the sign, hears the warnings, and understands that when the final shift happens, you won't get a second chance to decide how to respond. We are standing in the final stillness before the sound, the last pause before the rush. And in that stillness, the wise don't fall asleep. They don't look away. They don't wait for someone else to act first. They stay ready. They stay aware. And when the silence breaks, they're already where they need to be, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and practically. This is that moment. And it won't last forever. There's a moment when the noise of the world starts to form a pattern. Not a pattern built on coincidence or conspiracy, but one that emerges when you start to connect the dots, when you begin to notice the rhythm behind the chaos. What we're seeing now isn't random. It isn't a collection of scattered disruptions happening in isolation. These are not scattered warnings. They are part of a countdown. And it's no longer a matter of if or even when. It's how soon. For years, we've watched individual events shake the world. Conflicts erupting in one region, economic systems stumbling in another, natural disasters drawing headlines for a day before being forgotten. But now, they're happening together, simultaneously, consistently, like echoes. As if something bigger is reverberating through the system, shaking loose the last pieces of normal we were trying so hard to hold on to. It's not about one single disaster. It's about the layers, the frequency, the acceleration. The very atmosphere of the world has changed, and most people can feel it, even if they can't explain it. And there are at least 5 signals, 5 markers that have intensified over time. Each alone would be cause for concern, but together they form something more serious. They form a sequence, a chain, a countdown. And that countdown, if we're honest, appears to be running out. The first is the deep fracture of truth itself has become negotiable. It no longer matters what is real, only what is repeated, what is trending, what is convenient. What is convenient? Institutions that once stood for credibility have now become vehicles for manipulation. News is curated to shape opinion, not inform. Facts are filtered. Narratives are constructed, and those who ask the wrong questions find themselves silenced. When society loses its grip on truth, everything else begins to unravel. Because if we don't agree on what is real, we can be led anywhere. We can be told anything. And in that vacuum of clarity, confusion becomes the tool of control. The second signal is the rise of manufactured dependency. Systems are being put in place not to empower, but to condition. People are being nudged, softly at first, then more forcefully, into digital frameworks that promise convenience but deliver captivity. Digital identification, programmable currencies, centralized data, biometric surveillance. These aren't theories anymore. They're prototypes being rolled out, not someday, now. And every time someone trades privacy for ease, every time someone accepts a bit more oversight for a bit more comfort, the world gets closer to a system where freedom isn't removed all at once. It's replaced gradually, step by step, permission by permission, until people don't even realize it's gone. The third warning sign is the weaponization of fear. We're living in a culture that thrives on crisis, and it's not by accident. Fear keeps people reactive, distracted, willing to trade liberty for security. Every few months, a new fear emerges: a virus, a war, a shortage, a threat. And with each wave, we're told how to think, how to act, how to conform. Fear is used not to awaken, but to suppress, to keep people in a state of constant dependence, constant anxiety, constant distraction. Because people who are afraid don't ask questions, they follow orders. They accept things they would have once resisted. And the moment you realize that fear is being engineered, not solved, you begin to see the playbook behind the performance. The fourth signal is the collapse of natural order. What was once intuitive, even sacred, is now redefined, deconstructed, or dismissed altogether. Foundations that once gave stability, family, identity, purpose, are being blurred beyond recognition. Society has become allergic to boundaries, obsessed with fluidity, addicted to the idea that truth is whatever we say it is. But that kind of chaos isn't liberation. It's disorientation. And disoriented people are easier to govern, easier to manipulate, easier to drive toward an end they never saw coming. The dismantling of natural order isn't accidental, it's strategic. Because a world without structure is a world begging for a new one to be imposed. The fifth and final marker is the convergence of all of the above into a single narrative. It's not that these issues are happening independently. They're feeding each other. The fear feeds the dependency. The loss of truth accelerates the collapse of order. The confusion over identity fuels the rise of centralized control. And through it all, the message remains the same. The old ways are obsolete. The new systems are inevitable. And anyone who resists is dangerous. That's not progress. That's programming. And we are seeing that programming accelerate in ways that are hard to ignore. Now, when you step back and look at all these signals, one thing becomes clear. This is a countdown, a build-up, a tightening spiral that's drawing the world toward a moment of reckoning. These aren't trends, they're transitions. And transitions always lead to something. Some might say, well, we've always had wars. We've always had fear. We've always had confusion. True, but never like this. Never all at once. Never so synchronized. Never so global. What we're witnessing now isn't just the sum of past patterns. It's the escalation of them, the compression, the convergence. It's as if the storm has been gathering for years, and now the clouds have finally collided. August 6th may just be another day to most. But to those who've been watching the patterns, it's becoming more and more obvious that this date has weight, not because someone said it does, not because of speculation or sensationalism, but because it marks a place in time where these countdown markers have reached a threshold. You can feel the tension in the air. You can sense the system straining. You can see the last few cards being played. And all of it points to the idea that something is about to break through the surface. It's not about predicting the exact moment of impact. It's about recognizing the signs of approach. Because if you wait until it becomes obvious to everyone, it's already too late. The systems being put into place are not being designed for reversal. They are being designed for permanence. And once that permanence locks in, the world will not look the same. Not in a year, not in a month, maybe not even in a day. The reason this matters so much now is because once you understand the countdown, you begin to see how short the time really is. The warnings aren't meant to scare. They're meant to prepare. They're not meant to paralyze. They're meant to clarify. And clarity is exactly what this moment demands. Because if you still believe that what's happening is just another cycle, just another season, you will miss the reality of what's unfolding right in front of you. This is not just the collapse of an old system. It's the rollout of a new one. And that new system is not being designed with your freedom in mind. It's being built on control, compliance, and convenience. And once people are inside it, stepping outside won't be a matter of opinion. It will be a matter of survival. That's what makes this countdown so sobering. Because it's not just a series of headlines, it's a setup for a world that functions differently, thinks differently, lives differently. And for those who've been sensing this, those who feel like they can't quite explain what's wrong, but know that something is, it's time to trust that instinct. The world isn't just shifting, it's being shifted, and that shift is accelerating. Every system is being redefined. Every foundation is being shaken, and every person will be asked to make choices they never imagined they'd have to make. The truth is, we're not waiting for the signs anymore. The signs are here, the countdown has already begun. And it's not about guessing the final moment. It's about being awake enough to see how close we really are. Because when the last marker hits, there won't be time for questions, only answers. And only those who've been watching will be ready to respond. The signs are no longer scattered, they're in sync. And the moment they finish echoing, the world will enter a chapter from which there's no turning back. August 6th is not just a date, it's a signal. A quiet, pulsing moment on the calendar that seems to hum with tension. It doesn't scream, it doesn't announce itself with chaos or fire, but it lingers in the atmosphere like the moment before a storm breaks, like the breath the earth takes before shifting. This date didn't become significant overnight. It's been building, framed by converging events, escalating warnings, and a growing sense that time itself is pressing in. It represents something many can't quite name, but undeniably feel, that the world is teetering on the edge of something irreversible. There's something strange about August 6th, not because someone predicted it, but because the world is aligning around it. It's not superstition or theory, it's observation. The silence surrounding it feels deliberate, unsettling. It's not the loud panic that wakes people up. It's the quiet before the noise, it's the waiting. The eerie calm that descends before a seismic shift. And the truth is, very few recognize the danger in the silence, because silence feels safe. Stillness feels peaceful, but not all peace is peace. Sometimes peace is paralysis, sometimes it's the final warning disguised as calm. Right now, we are living in that silence, the kind of silence that comes just before something collapses. Look around and you'll see it. Systems are functioning, but just barely. Institutions are moving forward, but with no real stability. Leaders are speaking, but without clarity. The motions are still happening, but the meaning behind them is gone. People continue with daily routines, but there's a weight hanging over every interaction, a feeling that something's wrong, that something's coming, that August 6th, or what it represents, might just be the day the silence breaks. The world isn't falling apart in dramatic fashion. It's unraveling slowly, then all at once. And this silence, it's not a break in the chaos, it's the pressure before the rupture. You can feel it in the hesitation of decision makers, in the cautious language of global institutions, in the quiet exits of those who no longer believe the system can hold. There's no need for loud proclamations. The warning is the absence of noise. The alert is the lack of action. That's how we know we're in the final phase before a shift. The hard part about silence is that it makes people complacent. They think if something big were going to happen, surely we'd see it by now. But they miss the point. Major change doesn't always begin with explosion. It begins with exhaustion, with systems that are so strained they can no longer hold weight, with people so distracted they no longer see the cliff ahead. And that's where we are, right on the edge, just before the sound returns. August 6th is not about a single event, it's about culmination. The weight of years, decades of buildup reaching a point where something must give. The financial markets are volatile, yet eerily stable. Governments are more centralized, yet less trusted. Technology is more advanced, yet deeply invasive. And people are more connected than ever before, yet more isolated, confused, and anxious. That's not progress, it's prelude. And when everything appears calm on the outside, but tension is rising underneath, the shift always comes without warning. Some might wonder what makes this silence any different from others in the past. And the answer is this: never before have the fault lines been so many, so deep, and so synchronized. In the past, there were moments of unrest, of disruption, of crisis. But today, those disruptions are layered. Political unrest atop economic instability, technological control atop social confusion, ideological division atop emotional fatigue. It's all stacked, and when it collapses, it will not fall one brick at a time. It will fall like a structure that's already cracked beneath the surface. And this is why August 6 matters, not as a day that must be feared, but as a reminder of the stillness we're in. This is the final alert, not delivered by sirens or headlines, but by the total absence of urgency from a world that should be trembling. And make no mistake, the silence will not last. There will come a moment when the pressure can no longer be contained, when the quiet will be shattered by impact. And when that moment arrives, everything will move fast. Too fast for those who weren't ready. That's why the stillness right now is so dangerous. It deceives, it soothes. It makes people believe they still have time. But time is not endless, and silence is not mercy. It's mercy disguised as a final opportunity, a space to pause, to reflect, to position. Because once it's gone, the choices will be made for you. The shift will decide. And you'll either be ready or you won't. There is no value in guessing what minute it will happen. The power is in recognizing that it's already begun, that what August 6 represents is not a sudden change, but the culmination of countless quiet shifts that have been happening all around us. And now they've reached their threshold. The final domino is standing, and the silence is the breath the world takes before it falls. There's a strange calm in the air, a deceptive peace that feels more like pressure than relief. And it's not just local, it's global. You can sense it across countries, across markets, across communities. The unrest is quiet, but present. The instability is hidden, but growing. And through it all, most continue moving forward, unaware that they're walking through the last moments before something irreversible. This isn't about drama. It's not about guessing games. It's about discernment, understanding the nature of silence, recognizing that history rarely repeats the same way, but it always rhymes. And right now, the rhythm is clear. We are on the edge of something, and the silence is not a pause, it's the signal. The final alert doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with fatigue, with questions left unanswered, with systems that no longer feel right, with quiet exits, with eerie timing, and most of all, with the deceptive illusion that maybe things are turning around, when in fact, they're winding down. The wise don't wait for the sound to startle them. They act during the silence. They pay attention when others tune out. They move when others freeze. And they understand that when history reaches a breaking point, it does so in silence first. That's where we are, in the silence before the sound. And the shift is closer than anyone realizes. There are moments in history when time seems to hold its breath, when the ordinary rhythm of life, its distractions, its noise, its routines, suddenly feel suspended, as if waiting. It's not a loud disruption, it's quiet, subtle, but deeply unsettling. And if you're paying attention, you begin to notice a pattern, one that doesn't scream but whispers. A convergence of events, movements, and decisions that begin to point towards something far greater than coincidence. That is where we stand right now. And the date that keeps surfacing again and again isn't random. August 6th is not just another day on the calendar. It's a day being highlighted, not by headlines or social media trends, but by the undeniable convergence of global tremors that demand a closer look. The reason this moment feels so urgent is because it doesn't stand alone. It's part of a series, like dominoes arranged with precision, one by one, each tipping into the next. What's happening across the globe is not disjointed, it's interconnected. And the rate of acceleration is no longer something we can brush off as natural or seasonal. The tensions are rising, not just internationally, but internally, in nations, in communities, in families, and within individuals. There's a sense that something has shifted, something foundational. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. This shift isn't accidental. Take the geopolitical landscape. You can feel the anxiety across continents. Nations once considered stable are fracturing from within. Alliances are fraying. Words like escalation and immobilization are no longer just part of military jargon. They're part of daily news briefings. In the East, there are whispers of invasion. In the West, there's unrest in the streets. Even those who typically tune out political noise are beginning to ask questions. Oh, why now? Why all at once? The answer may not lie in the noise itself, but in the timing of it all. Technology, too, is surging at a pace that feels almost unnatural. Artificial intelligence is no longer a curiosity. It's becoming a necessity. Digital currencies are no longer speculative. They're being tested, implemented, embedded. And surveillance isn't just something that happens in dystopian novels. It's happening through the very devices we hold in our hands. And all of it is converging towards something bigger, something more centralized, something far more controlling than most are willing to admit. But this convergence isn't just external, it's internal. People feel it. They feel it in the weight of their choices, in the erosion of trust, in the gnawing realization that the ground beneath them is shifting. There's a restlessness in the soul that coffee and entertainment and vacation plans can no longer mask. The questions we've avoided are rising to the surface. And the certainty we once had in our systems, in our structures, in our securities, it's crumbling. And yet this isn't about fear, it's about recognition. It's about understanding that what's happening right now is not random. It's not just political. It's not just technological. It's not just cultural. It's directional. And it's being guided by something far more deliberate than many are willing to acknowledge. The systems we once trusted are being tested. The leaders we once followed are faltering. The voices we once admired are growing silent. And as August 6 approaches, there's an unmistakable uptick in urgency. Some might ask, well, why that date? What makes August 6 so significant? It's not just one thing, it's everything. It's the layering of conflict upon conflict. The stacking of warnings, natural and man-made. The simultaneous rise of control and collapse. It's the way governments are issuing statements that feel more like threats. It's the way economies are trembling under the weight of artificial inflation and manipulated narrative. It's the global fatigue that's setting in, not just from war or politics, but from a deeper, more existential exhaustion. We are witnessing the erosion of boundaries. Boundaries between truth and deception. Between freedom and compliance, between reality and simulation. And these aren't just philosophical concepts, they're tangible. You can see them in the way media is curated, in the way dissent is punished, in the way truth is made negotiable. We are not drifting, we are being driven. And the question becomes, to what end? And yet there's still a window. A moment, however brief, before the next domino falls. That's what makes this time so crucial. Because in the calm before the shift, clarity is possible. Not clarity through headlines or social commentary, but clarity through discernment, through observation, through asking the hard questions we've ignored for too long. Who is steering this convergence? Why now? Why so many layers at once? Why such synchronization? August 6 may not be the end of the story, but it marks something, a trigger, a transition, a threshold. And those who have been watching, those who have refused to be distracted, those who have chosen to stay awake, they know it. They may not be able to pinpoint every detail, but they feel the weight of it. They sense the rhythm of history speeding up. They understand that preparation isn't just about food or supplies. It's about mindset, about clarity, about being ready to stand when everything else is shaking. This is the world we live in now, a world where disruption has become the new normal. Where chaos is engineered, where crisis is leveraged, where unity is promised but control is delivered. And yet amidst all of this, there remains a choice to respond, not with fear, but with awareness. To observe, not just with eyes, but with understanding. To prepare, not just physically, but mentally. Because what's coming may not be stoppable, but how we stand in the face of it is. Think about the patterns we've seen before major shifts in history. The silence before the storms. The strange calm before catastrophic change. It's not just cinematic, it's real, and we're in it. The world isn't exploding all at once. It's being unraveled piece by piece, thread by thread. And just when it seems like it could hold together a little longer, something else gives way. August 6 is not a prediction, it's a pressure point.